And welcome back to another episode of John Sees the World. Or is it John Sees the World? And I'm an asshole, and that's okay. I piss people off, and it makes my day. Of course, I can't start the show without that. We have to have the song. I mean, what can you say? Now, as you can, as those of you who do follow will notice that Richard is missing tonight, which is fine. We've had a friend who's had a crisis, and Richard and another close friend of ours are at this point dealing with that crisis to help this friend. So let's hope it turns out okay. And as a result, I'm going to do this by myself. But then again, what the hell? Why not do it by myself? So we don't have any sponsors today, seeing as Richard is missing. He wasn't there to hire anybody, get anybody to pay for this. So we're without. But we shall continue on regardless. Now, the first story tonight I'm going to tell you about is about an ex-girlfriend. Her name was Eloisa. Now, mind you, I'm not going to tell you her last name. She doesn't deserve to be bothered by anybody. But yeah, her name was Eloisa. Now, Eloisa and I got sort of caught in a compromising position one night at my parents' house. So let me explain this to you. Now, in order to tell this story properly, I guess there should be some reference material or backstory to this so that you will understand. At the time, Eloisa and I were in our early 40s. She was 43, I was 42. She had a 13-year-old son, and we were living together. Now, those of you who have been married for some time now, of course, when you get married, it's just the two of you and such. And most couples most couples, period, that get married, within the first year or two, the kids start showing up. You know, that's just a natural progression of the way things work. All right. But when the kids show up, if they were anything like me and my brothers and my sister were, they're very demanding, very require a lot of supervision because they do stupid stuff or they just do stuff that most people wouldn't think kids would do. That's how it is. Well, on this particular night, Loisa and I, we had her daughter over and her daughter's boyfriend, and they were more than agreeable to watch her 13-year-old son. And Loisa and I went to my parents' house to have some time to ourselves, so to speak. Now, let me give you some background on my parents' house. My parents and I and my brothers and my sister moved into the house in 1977. Had a chain link fence, the hurricane fence, some people call, down one side. And in the back, facing the major street there was a privacy fence. Fence of about, 6 foot tall, which was, in our estimation, pretty cool. I mean, the only other house that my parents had ever really, quote, owned had been in Texas as well, in San Antonio, up on the northeast side back in the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s. And it didn't have a privacy fence, it didn't have a hurricane fence even. That's just the way it went. But anyways, we moved in 1977. And as the years began to pile up and go by, that fence would slowly fall apart and fall over. Well, my father, instead of hiring someone, since he obviously wasn't going to do it himself, to rebuild the fence back there, let it fall over. And over a period of about a year or two, he took sections of it and he would put it in his barbecue grill. And my father didn't barbecue. He just liked barbecuing fence. He would cook the fence until it was ash. My father's the only guy I know that cooked about 40 foot of fence in a barbecue grill. Now, as a result of that, whenever my father came home or whatever, depending upon his mood, he could pull up to the backyard and pull into the backyard and be in the backyard and come into the back door instead of, like normal people, parking in the driveway and coming into the front door. So there, Eloisa and I, we're looking, we're having a little her and me time, which of course translates to I'm naked, she's naked, we're going to do the horizontal mambo bambo or whatever. We're just about there when all of a sudden the back door opened. Oh, shit. My parents had been out of town for a few days and were supposed to be out of town for a few more days, but decided to come home early. And as usual, Dad pulled into the backyard. I didn't notice the headlights back there and whatnot. First thing I was aware of is, oh shit, someone's coming in through the back door. Eloisa jumps up, runs off into the bedroom, her clothes clutched in her hands. I'm sitting there in front of the couch on the rug. Needless to say, everything I've got, except my t-shirt, of course, are pulled down around my ankles. Damn it. Well, as these individuals are coming through the back door, I'm pulling up my clothing and covering myself and zipping things and hoping that nothing gets caught. And I can hear Eloisa down the hall in one of the spare bedrooms hurriedly trying to get dressed. Well, my father comes walking in. He goes, "What the hell was that?" I go, "What do you mean, Pop?" He goes, "All I know is I opened up this back door to come in, and all I saw was this little brown butt go streaking down the hallway." It's like, oh my God. Needless to say, Eloisa and I got caught. And I explained to my father that, you know how it is, we're in our early 40s. We're still active, so to speak. And there's a 13-year-old who's at home right now being watched by his sister and her boyfriend. And we just came here for a little privacy as such. At which point he explained to me, well, it's your house anyways when I'm gone, so don't worry about it. So I got away with that one. But I don't know if any of you out there have ever been caught by your parents in coitus. But yeah. Well, my brother got caught too, but that's another story for another time. Now, I have one remaining brother. Well, biological brother. And don't take that, the wrong biological brother. I love him. I love him, man. Always have, always will. We've been together See, I'm 67 now. We've been together about 65 years. That's a long time for someone to get used to somebody. But yeah, we're used to each other nonetheless. But one year, this is back when I was working for my first printing press, my first print shop, rather. And I took vacation. I took a week's vacation to go up to Houston, Texas, specifically Spring, Texas, to visit with my brother. And funny thing about that one is, um, the first night I didn't show up, my dad got a call because I had his phone number listed as my phone number, and they were asking, "Where's John?" He says, "Yeah, John. We thought John, John didn't show up for work tonight. Where's John?" And my dad was somewhat confused. Like, wasn't he on vacation? At which point, the voice on the other end went, "Oh yeah, that's right. We forgot." So that's how that started. But anyways, at one point, when I was on that vacation, I remember that I went to NASA, went through one of the tours, enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. And I was also into photography at the time, doing a lot of single lens reflex 35 millimeter photography with a Nikon FE, uh, shot manually. I loved it. I was having a good time. At another point, I was at the Spring, Texas horticultural park or whatever they called it, which is quite pretty. A lot of flowers, a lot of plants, a lot of good color. Did a lot of photography there. Met a young lady who was about my age, who was a professional photographer. Taught me a lot in about an hour or two, and pictures and diagrams, and let me speak slowly like you are a retarded child. Believe me, it helped. But at one point, I was telling my brother, during that trip that, yeah, we need to go visit the USS Texas, the World War II cruiser USS Texas. Big son of a bitch. Damn, that was a big boat. Still is. And he goes, "Why would we go visit an old ship?" And I thought, well, me being ex-Navy and an ex-bosun's mate, am interested in visiting this old ship. And I wanted to share with him some of what I experienced when I was in the Navy. And so we went on board the USS Texas. We went down to Pasadena, Texas, is where it was at the time. And we went on board, and we were taking the tour and such. And the tour pretty much encompasses the main deck, and they go down one deck, to specific little places and whatnot, and that's it. Well, while we were wandering around on main deck, I looked at my brother and I said, "Hey, look, there's a hatch. Let's open it up. Let's go down." So we proceed to open up a hatch, which was clearly marked, "Do not proceed beyond this point. This is not on the tour." And we ended up in going through birthing spaces and different kind of spaces for different kind of evolutions and such, and ended up in the engine room. Surprisingly, it's surprising how much it doesn't change. I was really impressed with the fact that the ship I was on pretty much had the same stuff that the ship this was from World War One. And we were down there, just where people don't normally go, and just having a good time, seeing different stuff and whatnot. You know, of course, we made it back out and didn't get caught. Otherwise, who knows? We might be in America's Most Wanted or something. I don't know. What is this? Catching a. Oh, okay. While I was in while I was in college, I worked a variety of different jobs. I worked a lot of different jobs. I worked as a warehouse manager, uh, putting bedding in. And when I mean bedding, I mean mattresses and such in a brand new hotel. That one was like, I think, 2 days that lasted. That's how long it took us to put the mattress and the box spring in each room. I did a lot of different things. Okay. Uh, Between semesters, of course, I would take a temporary job to make some money. And one of the temporary jobs I took was at Josky's department store. Josky's doesn't exist anymore in San Antonio, Texas. Josky's is gone, which is a shame. It was a institutional legend, I guess, of department stores. They had one downtown, Josky's downtown, that if you went to the Josky's downtown, it was built in such a way, it was built around a church. Instead of taking the church out and just building the whole, putting the whole building there, they built around it. And that church became known as St. Josky's, just in an offhanded way. Well, I happen to work at the Josky's on at near Central Park at Central Park Mall, which is right across San Pedro from North Park Mall, up on 410, the highway there that goes around San Antonio. So I was working there as a cook between, semesters and such. We used to have this guy who was the quote chef there in the kitchen at Josky's. Guy was a real he was an ass. Okay, let's be real about this. The guy was an ass. I mean, how can you think you're all that special when you're the chef at Josky's, a department store that just happens to have a kitchen? I mean, come on, really. Well, anyways, I was working there with another guy who was a chef's assistant. And after a month or so, I got tired of the guy's story and his attitude and whatnot. And the other guy had already been very tired of that story and that attitude and whatnot. So one day near closing time, I cooked up, I think it was 4 or 5 eggs, scrambled them up, cooked them up. And I went into the locker room and I found this chef's shoes and proceeded to fill the ends of his shoes with scrambled eggs. Yeah, I know. I can't help myself. I'm just that way. I do things. Sometimes I don't think about them. Sometimes I do think about them. Sometimes I'm just no impulse control. Yeah, that was John many years ago. So, anyways, at the end of the day, the guy he went into the locker room and we let him go in by himself. And we sort of sat out there, outside the locker room. And he started whistling and all this other stuff and changing his clothes. And then he got to his shoes apparently because he must have stuck a foot in one of the shoes. And what the fuck? Okay, you know what I mean. This is to say I didn't have a job after that day. But, hey, it was worth it. Putting what do you call it? Scrambled eggs in his shoes. Now, also while I was working at Josky's, one of the things I found out that was really cool when I came home from Turkey, I ended up in Saginaw, Michigan. And I was not averse to sticking my thumb out. Yeah, I used to hitchhike a lot. Up in the northern states, when you stick your thumb out and hitchhike, people are pretty friendly. You usually get a ride, going in a direction you're going, and get, so many miles down the road, and they drop you off, and then you stick your thumb out again and you try again. Now, down in Texas, they're not that friendly about it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the water. I don't know if it's the attitudes. I don't know if it's the food people are eating, but they just don't want to pick up hitchhikers. When I was working at Joski's, I didn't have a car at the time. So, sometimes I had the bus fare to get there. Sometimes I didn't have the bus fare to get there. So I'd have to go up on the highway there and stick my thumb out. And one time while my thumb was out, a limousine pulled over. And I'm thinking, what the hell? A limousine? Long stretch, black, had like 5 or 6 doors on each side. I don't know. It was a big, long thing. This is late 70s. So I walk up to the limousine and I go, hey, dude, I had my thumb out for a ride. Are you sure? And he goes, and the driver goes, yeah, man. By the way, get in the back. Enjoy yourself. So I got in the back of the limousine, opened the door, got in the back. As I'm starting to sit there, and get comfortable, and me with all my long hair and hippie ways, I guess you'd call it. Though, be honest about it, by the late 70s, the hippies were gone. We were all just long hair freaks back then. Then he looks back from the front seat and he goes, hey, man, there's a bar there. Enjoy yourself. And I wanted to. I really wanted to. But I was on my way to work and I explained to the guy, yeah, man, I'm just going to Joski's up by San Pedro, Central Park Mall, man. And I got to go to work. I'd love to partake of the bar, but I can't. And the guy was like, oh, that's cool, man. I'll get you there in style. And he pulled off from the side of the road with me in the back of the limo, took me all the way to Central Park Mall, took me to Joski's, to the front entrance, got out of the car after he parked it in front of Joski's, opened the door, let me get out, sort of gave a little bow and a wave, and I was like, wow, ain't this cool? I mean, to a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid, this is like, wow, this is something, man. Now, when I was in college, I did a lot of different kinds of drugs. I mean, that's what college is all about, right? Doing drugs. Of course, there are parents out there, no, my children will not do drugs and go. Well, I'm sorry, man, but yeah, they're going to if they want the full college experience, which I did, I suppose. I don't know what I wanted back then. But I remember one morning, it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was like an hour till my first class, a film class of some sort. And there was a young lady who I ran into who was a friend of mine. She's like, hey, John, I got some grass. Why don't we go out to my car and smoke it? I said, okay, cool. Let's go out to your car and smoke this grass. So we went out to her car, which happened to be a 67 Mustang. Not the fastback, the regular Mustang. Nice car. And I sat in the passenger seat, and she sat in the driver's seat, of course, and she pulled out this bag of weed and proceeded to roll a joint, which was cool. And when she rolled it, she lit it up, took a few hits, passed it over. I took a few hits, and we passed the joint back and forth. After which she was like, yeah, man, I think we could do another one. We still got like 30 minutes till class starts. It's like, sure, let's do another one. Nothing like going to class stoned when you're in college. Well, hell, I was doing that in high school, so I guess it didn't matter. So she proceeds to roll another joint, and lights it up. And we're passing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, And after we finish the joint, it's like 10 minutes till, 9 or so, we think. And we get out of her car to go to class. And we get to class, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Somehow, somewhere, it's not the next day or anything like that. So, none of that. It's just some weird thing happened, and we lost an hour. We left the building at 8 o'clock in the morning, went out in the parking lot, smoked 2 joints, had a good time, so to speak, and then went back to go to class, and it's still 8 o'clock in the morning. Woo, deja vu. Yeah, that was a trip. That was a trip. Now, this next story happened after I came out of the service, after I separated from the Navy. I was living with a friend of mine, Susan. And of course, as usual, I'm not going to give Susan's last name. Now, Susan was the ex-wife of another friend of mine, real good friend of mine, Jimmy. And at first, I wasn't sure how this was going to work out. Us living together, as roommates and such. Because Susan knew that when I got drunk, I tended to knock stuff over, accidentally step on stuff and destroy it without meaning to. I think I've told you a couple of John stories of John getting drunk and breaking stuff without meaning to. There was the plant that I put back in a pot upside down, walking into a table that had a glass top and accidentally breaking the glass top type of thing. But Susan and I ended up living in a house together in a part of San Antonio called Alamo Heights. Now, Alamo Heights is a real rich, ritzy section of town up on the northeast side of San Antonio, down near where Austin Highway and Broadway meet. But we lived on the wrong side of the tracks of Alamo Heights. Ours was not a, quote, rich house. Though, personally, I was there for 2 years till I moved on. I liked the house. We had a pecan tree in the backyard. Big son of a bitch. Jesus, that tree was big. It was 60, 70 feet tall. And every fall, the pecans would drop. Or whenever it was pecans drop, they dropped. And we could go out there with 10, 15, 20, 30 grocery bags. This is back when grocery bags were made of paper. So the big paper grocery bags. We could go out there and fill 30, 40, 50 of these grocery bags with pecans. It was incredible. We could store them and use them for Christmas presents, or, just eat pecans all day, or make different pecan things with them and such. But anyways, Susan was out on a date one night. I think it was a Friday night. She was out on a date. Now, me having just come out of the service, there was a lot of movies I didn't see during the 4 years I was in the service. So I was sitting there at the house in the front room watching a movie on HBO that I had never seen before. And God knows, I don't know what the movie was. And all of a sudden, there's this huge bang, bam, crunch in the front yard, off to the left of the house. I'm like, what the hell was that? So I get up off the couch, I go out the front door, and I look, and there's this brand newish looking SUV buried against the telephone pole, with the front end, buried in the telephone pole, next to the house, right there by our fence. And there's 4 youngsters. I call them youngsters. They must have been in their early to late teens to early 20s, I guess, crawling out of this SUV. 2 guys and 2 girls. About this time, one of the guys is like, get rid of the beer, get rid of the beer. And before I know it, they start pulling out all these 6-packs of beer and they're tossing them over the fence into my backyard. Well, mine and Susan's backyard. And I'm like, whoa, really? Okay. So I go back into the backyard, go back in the house, close and lock the door, of course. I don't want them coming in the house, but after I made sure they were okay, they were fine, nobody was hurt. And I go into the backyard and I start collecting 6 packs of beer. I ended up collecting, I think it was like close to 3 cases of beer. And I was putting it in bedrooms, I was putting it in the refrigerator, putting it wherever I could put it. Of course, San Antonio PD showed, well, not San Antonio, the Alamo Heights PD showed up. And the kid's like, oh my God, my dad's going to kill me. My dad's going to kill me. This is my mom's card. He just married my mom. And I'm like, wow, man, that sucks. So the Alamo Heights PD, they come up to me and said, yes, sir, we understand there was alcohol involved here. I said, well, I don't know about that. I wasn't with them when they had the accident. Yes, but it's our understanding from one of your neighbors that they were throwing beer over your fence. Well, no, I don't know about any beer that was thrown over my fence. And the police officer looked at me and he said, well, we need to check your premises for any stray beer. I said, no, you cannot check my premises for any stray beer. One, you don't have a warrant. You don't have cause. And you don't have my permission to enter my domicile. Oh, I used the word domicile. Does anybody know what domicile means? That's your word for this week. Domicile. Oh, yeah, part of your education, man. At which point they had to relent, leave me alone, take the youthful offender who had been driving the SUV into custody without the beers. I ended up with about 3 cases of beer. Well, that's enough for this week. I'm sorry it wasn't as vociferous as it usually gets, particularly when it's just me. But hey, what the hell, man? We all do what we gotta do, right? Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you again. I'll try to get another one out next week. And this is John Sees the World. Or is it John Sees the World? One day we will find out.